the dawn of the second millennium BC, the Near East was a complex geopolitical chessboard. The two superpowers of the age, the mighty Egyptian Empire and the rising Hittite Empire, faced each other in a ruthless struggle for influence. Syria, with its strategic location and economic wealth, became the focal point of this competition. The Battle of Kadesh, fought around 1274 BC, was not a simple military clash, but the culmination of decades of tension, imperial ambition, and complex diplomatic calculations. The new kingdom,
Within
Egyptian
these
Empire,
sacred walls,
especially under 18th dynasty
Imhotep,
pharaohs such as Thutmose
carved not
III,
just
reached the
stone.
height of its power, extending its influence far and wide into the Levant. While Egypt struggled to recover, the Hittite Empire rose to become a formidable superpower, centered in Anatolia. Under talented kings such as Shupalululiuma I, the Hittites expanded southward, annexing the kingdom of Mitanni and converting Egypt's former vassals in Syria into their own. King Muwatalli II was a shrewd ruler and strategist, inheriting a vast but unstable empire. He faced multiple threats at once: the constant rebellions of the Kaska tribes on the northern frontier, and the ominous rise of the Assyrian Empire in the east. Even the latent conflicts within the royal family were a challenge. Queen Puduhepa, wife of Hattusili III, later played a key role in negotiating the Treaty of
The
Kadesh,
Egyptian war chariot,
demonstrating the
light and
importance of
swift,
other members of
designed
the
for
royal
speed
family
and
to Hittite
maneuverability.
foreign policy.
2 horses,
For Egypt,
2 warriors.
the decision to build a new capital, Pharaoh Ramesses II, east of the Nile Delta, was also a strategic move, bringing the center of power and military logistics closer to the Asian
Imhotep
front,
outlines the
ready for
fundamental
expeditions.
military philosophies
The
behind
loyalties
the
of
2
these small
chariot
kingdoms
designs.
were always fluctuating,
Egyptian speed and
often
range.
leaning towards the stronger side to survive. The Amurru king Ben-Tashinas turn to ally with Egypt, upset the fragile balance, and became the immediate cause of the war. For Ramses II, this was an opportunity to reassert his power. The Battle of Kadesh was the pinnacle of Bronze Age chariot warfare, where 2 completely different military doctrines collided. Egyptian chariots were characterized by their light, fast, and maneuverable design, pulled by 2 horses and carrying a crew of 2, a driver and an archer. In contrast, Hittite chariots
The Hittite
were heavy
army is
war
still
machines.
far away in
They
Aleppo,
were
Your
larger,
Majesty.
sturdier, drawn by
They
3
appear
horses,
frightened.
and carried a crew of 3, a driver, a shield-wielding warrior for protection, and a spear-wielding warrior for close combat. The axles were placed in the middle of the chariot deck, increasing its load-bearing capacity. The confrontation at Kadesh therefore can be seen as a large-scale field test of 2 opposing military philosophies: the speed, agility, and long-range firepower of the Egyptians, and the shock power, endurance, and close-range combat prowess of the Hittites. Unbeknownst to Ramses, the entire chariot force of Muwatalli II was secretly lurking just behind the Kadesh citadel, ready for a devastating ambush. The trap was perfectly laid. At the most critical moment, an unexpected relief force appeared and completely changed the course of the battle. The Nairene forces, approaching from the west, attacked the flanks of the Hittite army that was busy looting the Egyptian camp. Attacked from 2 sides, Ramses from within and Nairene from without, the Hittites were thrown into disarray. The Battle of Kadesh is a classic study of the profound disconnect between military reality on the battlefield and the truth constructed by state propaganda. The conflicting evidence from both sides and the discrepancy between the Egyptian claim of victory and the actual strategic outcome all point to Ramses II engaging in an extraordinary propaganda campaign to conceal an inglorious military outcome. This is one of the earliest and clearest examples of rewriting history for political purposes. Fortunately, archaeologists have discovered royal archives at Hattusa, the Hittite capital, which provide a counter-narrative. Cuneiform texts found at Hattusa, including diplomatic letters and administrative records, describe the Battle of Kadesh as a Hittite victory. These documents, due to their administrative nature, may provide a more realistic view of the strategic outcome of the battle.
Based on critical analysis from both sides, modern historians have come up with a more balanced assessment of the outcome of the Battle of Kadesh. Most scholars today agree that the battle ended in a tactical draw. Ramesses II achieved a personal tactical victory by surviving the ambush and saving his army from total annihilation. The discovery of copies of the peace treaty from both sides was a breakthrough. Although there were minor differences in language and wording to please each side's audience, the core content of the treaty shows an agreement
to our
between 2
Egyptian
equals,
narrative
not
of
an imposition
Kadesh.
by the victor. This indirectly confirms that the battle had no clear winner, Although the Battle of Kadesh was the last major direct military confrontation between the two empires, the state of Cold War and small-scale conflicts over influence in Syria and Canaan continued for some 15 years. Ramesses II had to undertake further campaigns to quell the revolts of his vassals in Canaan and reassert Egyptian power in the region.
Saved his army.
However, the larger geopolitical context gradually pushed both powers toward peace. The growing threat from the Assyrian Empire to the east created a common enemy, forcing Egypt and the Hittites to see the benefits of cooperation rather than continuing to undermine each other. Furthermore, the Hittite Empire faced considerable internal turmoil. After the death of Muwatalli II, his younger brother Hattusili III overthrew his nephew Urhi-Teshub and took the throne. As a usurper, Hattusili III desperately needed a peace treaty with Egypt to legitimize his reign and stabilize the political situation at home. About 15 years after the battle, in the 21st year of Ramesses II's reign, c. 1258 BC, the two empires signed a peace treaty, which is now recognized as the oldest surviving international treaty, of which we have copies from both sides. The treaty was a complex and sophisticated diplomatic document, far beyond a simple truce.
May this treaty
the balance of
endure
military
for all
power
time,
demonstrated at Kadesh, coupled with the pressure from
lands.
external threats, forced the two superpowers to abandon their confrontational
With
policies
this accord,
and move toward
our
cooperation.
lands shall
The Treaty
know
of
peace,
Kadesh was
and
more
our
than an agreement to end the war.
prosperity.
It established a bipolar world order based on the principles of
good to
mutual
finally
recognition
meet
of sovereignty, collective security,
May this
and conflict
peace last
resolution through
1,000
diplomatic
years.
channels. The Battle of Kadesh, fought over 3,200 years ago, still resonates in history as an iconic event. Not only was it a colossal military clash, the largest chariot battle ever recorded, but it was also a turning point in many ways. Politically, it is a prime example of how leaders use war and propaganda to consolidate power and build a legacy.
The Kadesh
Ramesses II, while failing to achieve his
testament to
military
a new
goals,
world
succeeded
order
in creating an
built on
immortal
mutual
image of a heroic
sovereignty.
warrior king. However, Kadesh's most important and lasting legacy lies in the realm of diplomacy. From the ashes of an inconclusive war, the two empires forged a lasting peace through the Treaty of Kadesh, demonstrating that even after the most brutal conflicts, peace through dialogue and agreement remains the most viable and sustainable path.
Kadesh's
Thus,
most
the Battle of
significant
Kadesh
legacy
is not only an
diplomacy,
important chapter in ancient military
establishing a
history,
lasting
but also a
peace through
milestone in the birth of
negotiation
modern
and agreement.
diplomacy.